Welcome to the Four Visions Market Podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforests, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Welcome back, Four Visions family. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Four Visions podcast. I am so excited for this conversation today, and I want to give a warm welcome to our guest today, Josh Trent, host of the Wellness and Wisdom podcast, creator of the Liberated Life Tribe and Breathe, Breath, and Wellness. Josh has spent the past 21 plus years as a trainer, researcher, facilitator, discovering the wellness and wisdom for himself and humans to thrive in our modern world. His mission is to help humans liberate their mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and financial selves through podcasts, programs, and global tribe that believe in optimizing our potential to thrive. Josh, it's a pleasure to have you. Welcome to the show.
Oh, what a warm welcome. That was so cool. It's been a while since I've heard those words. And so that was a really awesome reminder of what I'm up to, what we can talk about, and I think what the world needs. So yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on. You know, I have a lot of respect for your podcast and the work that you're doing. So it's fun to have you in the other seat as the interviewee and to get to ask you some questions and learn more about the work that you're doing in the world. So let's jump in. I would love to start with this beautiful topic of what it means to thrive, because I think that this is a term that really opens the door to our consciousness to even perceive or imagine a new type of reality, existence, consciousness. And it's an invitation in a lot of ways for us as humans to up-level the conditioning that we have received from past generations and to choose a new way to meet life. And I love that that is ingrained in what you stand for and in your platform, and would just love to get your take on this concept of what it means to thrive.
Well, I love the concept of yin yang that I can apply to this answer. And it's a great question because, gosh, doesn't everyone want to thrive? Like, isn't this what isn't it our birthright? I think we felt this forever, yet we live in modernity and society and convenience that we unfortunately sacrifice a lot of our soul for. And, you know, my whole life I've been searching for the truth. Like, what is the truth of being? What is the truth of everything? What does it mean to be a human, an embodied, loving, powerful, trustworthy human? And the reason I mentioned yin yang is because this balance of opposites that we all are either consciously or unconsciously living out is the answer is encapsulated in the teachings of the Tao and in the teachings of really all mysticism and ancient wisdoms, even in Peru, in Peruvian wisdom as well. If you look at all the teachers that have taught anything meaningful, what they really describe is owning all parts of self. So I think in order for us to thrive, we look at thriving's opposite. Thriving's opposite is slavery and decay and entropy and all the ways in which we either knowingly or unknowingly are in bondage. And so what I believe with that lens is that thriving is my courage and my capacity to say no to anything or anyone that doesn't align with my soul, that doesn't align with the authentic version of me, of who I actually am. And then once I have that as a proving ground, and I have that as a baseline, then I can really look at these aspects of myself, my physical wellness, my mental wellness, my emotional wellness, my connection to my creator through spirituality, and also my financial health, because finances are such a huge game here for us on planet Earth, for the majority of us, not all, but for the majority of us. And so thriving is the embodiment of these 5 aspects of self, and also the courage and the capacity to say no to anything or anyone that puts me in bondage. That's a life that you can really thrive with.
I agree wholeheartedly. And it's very much the tending to these different spiritual houses or these different pillars of the foundation of our existence. And without one of those pillars being strong, fortified, and in balance, the whole house falls down. And so I love that as
Yeah.
this like foundational model from which to approach wellness and living in balance ultimately, because it offers us this doorway into radical responsibility of acknowledgement that every single one of the foundational elements of our experience, our life experience, is important and needs to be organized, right? Like in organization, in right relationship, in order to be in that place of flourishment and thriving. It's a wonderful answer and wonderful place to begin the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I really resonate with what you said, because as you were speaking, I was seeing the plant behind you, and I was feeling this essence of a vine. You know, a
Mm-hmm.
vine intertwines in itself, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing with these aspects of ourself in the house. If for example, my floor, my physical of the house is weak, then it's going to be really challenging to be mentally well, which is one of
Yep.
the walls. And if I'm not mentally well, then it's going to be very challenging to have a nervous system that can process emotions or
Mm-hmm.
energy and motion. And of course, just as important is my connection to something greater than I, that which created me and created all things. And of course, because we live in modernity, I mean, you're in NorCal, I'm in Austin, these financial aspects of self and our relationship with money and our relationship with the energy exchange that money represents, if that is in alignment with the other four, like there's nothing that you can't handle. There's nothing that you can't over there's nothing that you can't surmount, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing that's going to block you. So yeah, I'm with you. It's this biotensegrity of plants. It's the biotensegrity of the pentagon. It's the biotensegrity of all the different aspects of self that allow us to develop the capacity. That's really what this is about, to develop the capacity to even first have the courage to change.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the strength inside of us to then elicit that change. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot here. It's a
Mm-hmm.
big conversation.
Yeah, it's really what it's all about. And ultimately, being able to cultivate that courage is perhaps one of the first steps to go down this journey, because it is very much a journey full of many different chapters, layers, unfoldings, and developments and evolutions. And we're always in this process dying to the version of ourself that was yesterday and birthing the new version of ourself that's awaiting us on the other side,
Hmm.
from the
Hmm.
place of this massive cycle of constant evolution, transformation. It requires an element of stamina, but it also, more than that, requires a willingness and a flame within our hearts to tend to and keep alive that desire for growth and evolution. And I wanted to ask you about that in your own personal journey. You know, you've been in the podcast world for a decade now, and you've spoken to many different people from all sorts of walks of life. And definitely, you know, from what I have received from your platform and the way that you offer yourself to the world, it's very much in this like search for growth, spiritual maturation, expansion, evolution. And curious, you know, what drives that abundance of vigor for you, as well as how would you recommend that we cultivate that for someone who might not feel that extensive amount of passion for the work, right?
Well, I would say that we all have that passion, because
Mm.
passion many times comes from pain.
Yep.
And, your mess, whether it's perceived or not, can really be your life's message. And the way in which we take our pain and we put it to purpose is, I think, an aspect of the hero's journey. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at Joseph Campbell's work, and for people that don't know, Joseph Campbell was a mystic, an author, just incredible teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And are you familiar with some of Joseph Campbell's work?
Yeah.
It's so wonderful, because we all go through this separation, initiation, and return. It's in every movie. It's in the movie that you and I are living out. We're in this grand theater where there's heroes and villains, and so when I'm separated from which I believe is comfort, or which I believe is love, and I'm initiated into the world where I find myself and I, fight with evil, the evil in myself and the evil in the world, then when I return, I can actually share the story, because I've embodied the lessons along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And every single human being has passion. I don't actually buy it. Of course, some people learn to develop the courage to articulate themselves at higher frequencies or with more vigor or passion than others. Yes, I get that. But I think that every single human being has this spark, has this
Mm-hmm.
divine spark that fuels them to be a good mother, to be a great father, to be a great janitor. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like anything you do in life, you can be passionate about it, or you
Mhm.
can use it as a stepping stone to expand into greater levels of passion for that which you do love.
Mhm.
And so for me, it came from pain. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, Mariah, there was always this part of me that was like, what are these adults so angry about? Why is there so much hurt in the world? There's got to be more than this to life. There's got to be more. And the question for me that sparked the podcast, I can trace it all the way back to when I was a little boy, and it was, how do I live my life well? How do I live really well? Because I know from my parental examples, and God bless them, they did the best they could, that wasn't living well. That wasn't living a life of passion and direction and purpose. It was them doing the best they could, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
With the level of consciousness that they had. And so for me, it was this journey of pain and taking that pain, growing up in a household where my mother was bipolar and my dad left home when I was very young, a few months old. And so not having a headquarters or a home space that felt
Mhm.
really peaceful and trusted and safe.
Mhm.
I developed hypervigilance. I developed eating disorders. I ballooned up to 280 pounds at one point. I found athletics. I found lots of things through this journey, but I had no tools whatsoever to find
Mhm.
myself, to find Josh.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I went to Hawaii in my early 20s, because there I was seeking this understanding of feminine energy.
Mhm.
Like, what is it? Because I'll tell you, for the first 20 years of my life, I don't think I ever embodied it at all. I don't even think I knew that I had feminine energy in me. It
Mhm.
like it wasn't even a thing. So so when I went to Hawaii and I found surfing and I was in the ocean and I was really experiencing the ocean, which is so deeply feminine. I mean, I actually think that inside of every woman, there's this deep, dark ocean of feminine for sure. There's
Mhm.
aspects of it in a man, but I celebrate. I celebrate the differences between men and women. I really celebrate those. And so, flash forward, I'm in my late 30s, or I'm sorry, I'm in my early 30s, and I had been a personal trainer for 10 years. And I loved it because I was really working on that base floor that we talked about, that physical part, because I didn't know how to integrate, nor really the ways to integrate the other four parts. I just didn't even know. I was actually unconsciously incompetent. I didn't even know that I didn't know. And so I just, like many young people, we just go to the physical, right? You see a lot of this in the world where it's like young people posting their abs and young people working out. I'm like, you're 21. It's pretty easy to have abs when you're 21, like that's a pretty easy path. And so by the time I was 33 years old, I had this absolute dark night of the soul. And I will never forget this. In the span of 6 months, I placed my mother in a mental home. She had a really, really bad episode. I got fired from a safe corporate job, which is an illusion because there is no safe corporate job.
Mhm.
And I was just completely in debt. And on top of that, I broke up with a woman that I thought I was going to marry. So all those four sides of myself were screaming at me for attention. And I never contemplated suicide. I don't ever feel that'll be a thing for me. But I was in a spare bedroom, paying a few $100 a month, launching my podcast, trying to figure out, who is Josh? What is this all about? And I just had this really deep grief and sadness that just dropped me to my knees. And I'll never forget this. I was outside of my friend's spare bedroom, and it was like midnight, and this thick fog was rolling in at the Omni La Costa by the ocean. And I just looked up at the sky and I was crying. And I said, God, if this is all there is to life, I don't want to live. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be a cog in the wheel of someone else's dream. I want to live my life well. How
Mhm.
do I do this? Like, please help me. Please help me from a space of me just wanting to be well so that I can do this. And that's where everything transformed and transitioned from there, because, I was essentially in the chrysalis. I was the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. I was going through the liquefaction of all the ways that I had had pornography addiction and alcohol and drugs and all the things that I was using to mash down
Mhm.
all the parts of me that were constantly screaming for my attention, constantly screaming. but I didn't have the knowledge or the courage. I hadn't developed the courage to meet myself, to meet those parts of myself. And so that's where the podcast was born from that space.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing a little snippet into your journey. And I think it's so resonant and relevant for anyone who's walking a spiritual path, this process that we all get to where the suffering is just insurmountable and we're forced to open our eyes on some level or search for some sort of reprieve and some sort of medicine to help us to soothe the suffering and to soothe the pain that we're experiencing. And it happens in so many different ways and it looks different for each person, but ultimately this reawakening process of like the vigor for life and that desire to look for something else and to start to ask the question, is there something more than this? Because this isn't it. This isn't doing it for me. This is like the ultimate question of our generation, I think. And it's beautiful, you know, even when you mentioned at the beginning the element of your childhood and what your parents doing the best that they can. It's like this question, this level of existential question. Our parents didn't have the blessing to even ask this, right? And definitely not our grandparents. So we're really the first generation who's getting this opportunity to really rewire our societal way of experiencing the human existence, which is just massively inspiring and humbling too, right? And for me, that's where I get a lot of my strength, I think, to do what I'm doing is like recognizing that this is not just for me, but also for my great grandparents who migrated here with their hopes and dreams and the life that they lived and all the things that they sacrificed so that I could have this opportunity here in 2024. And if there are hard days where I'm ready to like throw in the towel or ready to go down the rabbit hole of doubt, that's one of those threads that really always restores my faith and my dedication to showing up and continuing to do the work. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's so beautiful and really relevant for everything that we're experiencing right now. Just also with the election and the political climate, it's like these are massive questions that we're getting to ask, and not everyone is asking them, but enough people are starting to, where the collective consciousness there is that massive shift towards a redesign. But in order to reach that place of a new design, a new architecture for the psyche and for the human consciousness, these questions need to be asked, and then the work to uncover the areas in which we are still enslaved or we are still very much trapped by the consciousness that we were gifted and given and drank from that same wellspring. We have to go down that journey first of reworking and recognizing the ways in which we still are very much in bondage and enslaved by the thinking mind. And we were speaking briefly about this before the conversation, and just feels like a really good moment to kind of go into that topic a little bit more and really start to kind of dive in to what that process looks like, what it's been like for you, what snippets of wisdom you can share with our listeners as far as the process of honing in on what those thoughts are and how we are actually enslaved and liberating ourselves through liberation of the consciousness and the mind. And I'll just leave it there and ready to receive.
Well, you said a lot. I mean, that's so big. I would love, I'm going to answer exactly what you said. I would love, because you inspired me by what you were sharing before, to just talk a little bit about, you said political division and political climate. I am here to say I'm 44, so I'm not, I'm not a sage. I'm not sitting on a mountain, but in 44 years, I've learned a few things that have been really helpful. And so my intention in sharing this is just based on the learnings of my own pain. We are only controllable and dividable by political climate if we are a slave in our attention to the media and to the narratives that come from dark energy and Wetiko. So first and foremost, if we're committed to doing our work, and if we're spending our time, like even think of that phrase, Mariah, spending our time. We have a finite physical bank account. Like our souls are eternal because they come from God. They come from our creator. But our physicalness is a bank account. So when I spend my time, like when I'm spending my time with you, I'm really consciously spending my time with you. And I'm thrilled to be seeking the truth with you and exploring what it means to actually be here and thrive and be liberated with you, because I'm making a conscious choice to spend my time with you. Like how sacred that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
the ceremony of life that we're spending together. So we are only dividable. We are only controllable if we are so pulled and harvested in our attention, if we allow it, if we're spending our time focused on what it is we're here to do, which is to be free and to be well and to be connected in tribe and to be connected to ourselves, we are unfuckwithable.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot be fucked with. You cannot fuck with anyone who is spending their time on the things that are aligned with their purpose and their soul and their calling and their mission. They are unfuckwithable. They cannot be messed with. So that's first and foremost. The political climate, I look at it, Mariah, and you know what I do most times? I just laugh. I just laugh because all of these people are puppets, whether it's Trump or any of these people, they're all just puppets in a game. And what's really happening is there is a war for our soul. There is a war for the mind going on. And we are actually in control of it. It may seem at times that we're not. It may seem at times that people that are born to just total abject poverty. It's easy for me to say this, although I know poverty. I was raised on welfare by a single mother. There were times when I had to stand in a special lunch line at school and I felt the shame of what it feels like to not have money. Like I've been there. But I know that my situation is completely world class compared to the pain that people in third world countries go through. So what I'm saying is like there gets to be a perspective shift in the starting of where our attention is harvested and where we choose to spend our time and attention. That is the beginning of liberation. That is the ground floor of liberation, because when I'm consciously choosing to spend my time with you or with anyone where I feel like our time together is meaningful and it's enjoyable and it's truthful, and the truth always feels light, right? Lies always feel heavy. There's so many lies that I'd love to speak to you and with you and explore with you about today that really become this false veil that we actually put in front of ourselves as a reason why we can't be liberated, because we actually believe the thoughts that are driven by societal Wetiko or dark energy, and we think those thoughts are ours. And we don't have, first of all, the intelligence or the capacity to pull back, which is why breath is so important, and ask ourselves the most important question when it comes to being free and liberated. And that is, are the thoughts I'm allowing myself to believe actually true?
Mm-hmm.
Are they actually true? And if I just pause, and there's many tools for pausing, which we can get into because there's so much power in the pause. I mean, look what happens in ceremony, right? I'm sure you've been in many ceremonies. Look at what 4 Vision stands for. When we pause, there's a mentor of mine, Paul Chek, said that it's in silence that the pregnancy of silence is ready to burst with life's potential. But if we don't ever access silence or stillness or pause, we are always going to be a slave.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm on this conversation with you and I can't wait to just make myself look good and cut you off and see how this will benefit me and just take from the conversation, all I'm doing is robbing you and I of the pregnancy of the pause. And what a disservice that would be. How terrible that would be, right? But I've earned this awareness through the pain of its opposite. And that is hyper control, hyper vigilance, being a slave. And by the way, am I fully liberated? Absolutely not. The only reason I speak about liberation is because that is my deepest quest on this planet,
Mm-hmm.
is to help liberate myself first and foremost, and then authentically share what works, what doesn't, my shadows, my wounds, my stuff, and the light that I
Mm-hmm.
can bring. All of these things are encapsulated in your question. I mean, there's so much more there, but that's a great starting place.
What I'm really feeling and receiving is that this is really about always questioning and never losing our autonomy to question and investigate everything, and to be able to discern, right? And have um, that filter of what's ours, what's the collective, what's being fed to me, what have I just assumed and taken in because of the way I was brought up, or because of the stories I'm being told in the media, or whatever I'm consuming in my consciousness on a daily basis, starting to filter all of that and being in that place of sovereignty, really. It's the freedom, it's the liberation, it's the
Yes.
radical autonomy, right, for our existence, and not being allowing ourselves to fall into the trap of the no living, right? It's like when we live but we're asleep. It's the sleepwalking. It's like, okay, this is what they're feeding at my cafeteria at work. I'm just going to eat it, just because it's there. It's the I'm just going to continue this job that I know isn't sparking and igniting my passion for life because it's there and it's
Mm.
security. It's all of it, right? It's in the ability to uncover the veil that's in front of our eyes and to choose to meet life from a place of radical honesty for the present moment in each moment, and see each moment for what it is and dissect it, take it apart, be willing to doubt, be willing to ask questions, and also be willing to uncover the deeper layers of our own psyche that are very much filtering and being the lens from which we're seeing life at all times. So this is really the core of what we talk about on this show. Ultimately is like this process of walking this spiritual path and what it means to walk the spiritual path. And yes,
Mhm.
this process is for all human consciousness. Is everyone doing this? No, it's the hardest thing ever, right? And it requires a level of radical self-honesty too, to be able to do it, because we have to be willing to see all the lies that we've been feeding ourselves for so many years that we didn't even know we were telling ourselves.
And even the lies that we are so attached to because
Mm-hmm.
we've invested so much of ourselves into them.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Define
the
ourselves by
opportunity
them.
cost, we define ourselves by them. The
Mm-hmm.
opportunity cost of, let's say, a physician who has a noble intention in their heart
Mm-hmm.
and just wants to help people heal. And then they get into, can you imagine this, Mariah? Spending 10 years of your life to find out that you actually just entered the belly of a beast that's really just part of a bigger machine that's connected only to one thing, and that is to siphon energy and resources from our planet and to siphon energy and resources from all souls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is a hard pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
And every industry that has conscious beings in it, everyone is looking in the mirror and everyone is begrudgingly swallowing that pill right now that has any form of spiritual maturation. And it's
Mm-hmm.
challenging because I mean, I've been there. Like, there have been many things in my life where I thought something was true for so long. And then I realized, oh my God, I've been living a lie. This actually isn't true. And then this is the choice point that maybe might be the most important thing we talk about. There's this choice point, right? We get to the fork in the road. And on the left side, we continue with what we've believed, knowing that we'd be lying to ourselves, our soul, and to our community and to God, but it might be perceived as comfortable. And then there's the other path that's all gnarled with tree roots and animals and is scary, but it's the right path because it's the path of truth.
Mm-hmm.
So there's pain on either side, right? And I'm not here to shame or blame anyone who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't walk a spiritual path, because once you walk a spiritual path, you ain't going back.
Mm-hmm.
once you have tasted the fruit in the garden, there's no way you could go the other way anymore. You just
Mm-hmm.
can't. It's impossible.
Yep.
So what I am here to say though is I love the crux of your show, because if we're really walking a spiritual path and a path of liberation, we we have to be willing. It's non-negotiable. We have to be willing to look at the ways we've lied to ourselves, we've lied to others, because the only way out of this is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
The only way out of all of this mess. I mean, it brings up emotion in me just to talk about it. Like look at what's going on in our world right now. There's so much suffering, there's so much pain. The earth herself is being wounded. Like, it's just absolute, we're in insane times. Have we progressed from women being owned like cattle and slaves being beaten on boats? Yes, we have somewhat. But on a consciousness level, we're really just a beginning teenager. We're like 13 years old as a collective. We're not even an adult yet, because a true embodied loving adult that was trustworthy and that cared about oneself and others, they would never treat earth and people this way. They wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't even be in their consciousness. So I feel that pain, not to bathe in it. I feel that pain because that pain can actually be a source of motivation. And what's even more amazing is the more I allow myself to feel that pain, collective and individual, it's like pulling back an arrow. The further back you pull an arrow, almost to the point where the bowstring breaks and you finally let go of the arrow, man, you're going to shoot so far. So the more I can feel the depths of my pain with having the intelligence and the maturity to not get stuck in my pain,
Yeah.
because that's another construct. Being addicted to feeling my pain, being addicted to workshop, being addicted to ayahuasca, being addicted to any entheogen. I'm going to shoot so far once I develop the maturity and the intelligence to be able to harness my pain for love, to do something loving in the world, to do something meaningful in the world, to do something that makes a difference so that when I'm gone, I have done my part in this cosmic soup, this massive book that you and I are like a word on a page in, that I've at least made the story more loving, more meaningful, more fun. I think that's really at the crux of it all.
I agree completely. And it's beautiful. I love this, this moment of the choice between the truth and continuing to live the lie. And it gets to the point where we don't really have a choice in it, like you said. But there's some time there
it's
where
too painful not to choose.
Yeah. But there's some time there that you can get away with like staying in the lie, even though you know it's a lie. And that's an interesting time to be in too, in the process of spiritual evolution is like, how long do we let ourselves continue to lie in that way once we've already started to see that it is a lie? But, the thing that really kind of inspires me here is like at the end of your last sharing there, this element of the victim consciousness or the wallowing, which actually oftentimes I really see is happening in the collective pain body and the collective suffering of the planet. There's so many people who are good-hearted people who really, want this vision of healing and right relationship with earth and spirit. But we find ourselves once again being tricked into this trap of wallowing in the sorrow. And it's such a fine line between grieving and feeling the fullness of what the state of human consciousness is and what we're doing to the planet and to each other, and being a vehicle towards transformation and evolution. And so I really always like invite anyone who is feeling the deep pain, because it's there and it's like it's intense. If we really let ourselves go into it, most of us wouldn't leave our bedrooms every day because it's incredibly heavy, just as a full, like generally speaking, not to mention, the tragedies that are taking place week over week and just the horrors that we are witnessing, experiencing as part of the collective human psyche. But there's this choice there as well of like the role that we're going to play for the truth and the prayer of healing. And the prayer is a big element of this, and intention is a big element of this, because it's both on the personal and the collective. It's what carries us out of that place of victimhood and wallowing in the sadness and the challenge. And it's what gives us the pathway forward where we can hold that vision for what's to come. Hey, Four Visions fam, taking a quick break from today's episode to share about a really special new Four Visions offering. For the last 6 months, we've been busy working intimately with our indigenous botanists in both Colombia and Brazil on the sourcing of a collection of rare Amazonian plants, roots, barks, flowers, and seeds. We just launched the Rainforest Herbal Apothecary. As we continue to deepen our mission of integrating ancient plant medicine into the modern world, we are humbled and grateful for the next evolution of our brand. Offering deep bows of gratitude for the sacred earth medicines and the blessed opportunity to share the healing power of nature with people from all over the world, we want to thank our indigenous cultivators, botanists, healers, and our incredible Four Visions team for bringing this vision to life. And of course, you, our Four Visions community, for inspiring us to continue growing. Visit our website to check out the Rainforest Herbal Apothecary today, with over 25 new, ancient botanical remedies in their raw form. Our prayer is that these new offerings support you in deepening your relationship with sacred plant teachers by having access to their raw form.
We are so looking forward to sharing more about each and every one of these incredible plant allies over the coming months and deepening our education initiatives for our community. But for now, go explore the new collection and let the plants speak to you. And now, back to today's show.
Wow, I just felt that so strong. You know what's my favorite prayer to get myself out of victimhood? I close my eyes, and it could be with plant medicine or not. We don't need plant medicine, but plant medicine can inform us if we're open and we're wise. But sometimes I'll just sit in the sauna and I'll be feeling something and I'll just close my eyes and I will say, God, what is it that I most need to learn? And how can I be most humble to learn it? God, how can I be most humble to learn it? What is it that I need to learn? And I'll just repeat that over and over and over again. And something will come through. Some lesson in humility, some lesson in pain, a conversation that I get to have, a person that I get to reach out to, an apology that I owe someone, ownership that I haven't taken. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yep.
But if there was just like one, can you imagine? I know I'm being very dreamy right now, but I like dreamy because I think this can be very practical. Can you imagine if every human on planet Earth took 5 minutes today to just kneel and close their eyes and just ask God, what is it that I most need to learn? And how can I be most humble to learn it? Just that question, those two questions, like that could put a ripple in the earth so profoundly, collectively, that it would crack ivory towers of control and totalitarianism across the world.
Oh,
I mean, they wouldn't be able to
100%.
withstand the blow from that type of self-inquiry, from curiosity, from love. And when I say God, I don't mean a bearded person in the sky. I mean the omnipresent energy that I've seen and felt and that I'm learning more about and knowing more every day. Like that's who I'm praying to. I'm praying to that which created us. And I don't have to have an exact definition of what that is, but I honor it. I respect God. I respect my creator. And I think if we can do that, if we can pray, like you mentioned, that is, I mean, there's many more prayers, but like that one, it's so simple and we all can do it. And it's so potent. Sometimes the most potent prayers are the shortest ones.
So true. And it's ultimately this offering of humility, just imagining if our global leaders came to life from that standpoint, right? And the ego would just be radically shattered from that simple question. Like you said, it would just radically transform everything. But even there, even in the state of like how far we are from that as a reality, we can turn to prayer and hold that vision for that to be a reality. And there, prayer and action become two elements that are 100% in our control and resources to us at every single moment. And that, whether it's personal victimhood or just the immense collective pain that so many of us, especially who are empaths, feel and suffer a lot of us as we start to really like wake up, those of us who feel tremendously the suffering of others, we get really bogged down into it and it really becomes this cycle or this trap. And so this process of turning to prayer and then finding the action that's going to move forward that prayer into manifestation, whether, it's through our personal work and service or like starting small within our family unit or whatever influence we do have, like action is so important, right? And I'm sure like with all of your studies and inquiries into cognitive function and repatterning and development of, honing in of our capacity with our mind, I'm sure that this process of action is something that you've studied and experienced a lot, but it definitely requires making it become a pattern itself, that process of taking action, right? Because it's so easy to see, and then being able to find the step that we need to then move towards that place of it not just being an observation to it being actually transformation in action. That's like where we see the real magic happen. And that's when our life really starts to come alive and flourish and the magic really starts to come through.
You dropped the mic right there. Everybody heard her drop the mic. Like that was big because transformation has become sensationalized. It's become a commodity. Like you can't go on Instagram without seeing messages that are ads that say, transform your life in 5 quick steps. We've become addicted to platitudes. We've become addicted to quick fixes. And I don't say that to shame or blame. Like, yes, everybody loves convenience. Everybody wants to get through their pain in the shortest amount of time possible. But I'm here to say that, like, when you shortcut your pain, you shortcut your joy as well.
Mm.
When you try to take shortcuts around your pain and not take inventory, that's when victim vibration's really attracted to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you look at many of the stories in the Bible or in all religions, it's the injured animal or the injured lamb or the injured person that is most susceptible to Wetiko.
Mm.
And I'm not sure if you've explored Wetiko on the podcast or not. Is that something y'all have talked about a little bit?
A little bit, but for those who maybe didn't hear previous episodes,
Yes.
feel free to go deeper into it.
It really aligns with, I mean, what a great platform, because if anybody is involved with the brand and the mission of Four Visions, a lot of the plant intelligence already informs us about this anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the Native Americans called the mind virus individually and collectively Wetiko. And this knowledge was brought to me by Paul Levy, who was introduced to me by Paul Chek. And he wrote a book about Wetiko, which everyone gets to read. It's a dense read. And if you're not interested in the whole book, at least get the Cliff's Notes, because what happens to all of us, myself included, like, I'm not immune from this by any means, is that we actually start to harbor demonic or Jezebel or satanic energy. And everyone does. And to the degree that you're aware of it is to the degree that it either lives in you or dies and goes to find another host. And so what happens with Wetiko that Paul describes really well in his book is we become an unknowing host or an unknowing harbor for Wetiko. And you can see Wetiko primarily in the people that say they don't have it. Those are the people that probably have it the most. But also you can see it in the moral virtue signaling that is happening in our world, and the confusion and the capitalization of confusion, where when people are suffering, others reach out and monetize them. This is Wetiko. This is the ultimate form of Wetiko, actually, to go to the wounded person, to the wounded animal, and take from them for your own gain. That is Wetiko in action. And it's happening on a small and grand scale in our world, grand scale. Like, a good analogy for this would be if someone believes that they are immune to the Jezebel Spirit, and the Jezebel Spirit, for those that don't know, is a metaphor or a story from the Bible. And the Jezebel Spirit is essentially unconscious, hedonistic, sexual energy that's unbridled. And we see a lot of this in communities where it's like sexual goddess, sexual priestess, sexual healing. A lot of this is incredibly ungrounded and very much attached to Wetiko. So the one way to know if you have Wetiko in you, or if you're having Wetiko come at you, is first and foremost, ask yourself, that prayer is the starting place, because God will bring you, Creator will bring you wisdom there. I fully believe this, Mariah. If people are humble and they have a childlike heart and they open up in prayer to those words, Creator will bring you wisdom that you get to look at. And that is how you heal yourself from Wetiko. But the other way, if you don't have a devotional prayer practice, is actually to check the way that your gut, your throat, and your heart feel. So go to your somatic intelligence when you're around somebody who is supposedly trying to help you, or if you're in pain yourself and you're seeking wisdom or guidance from someone else. Because this used to be a big question for me, right? I was like, how do I trust a coach or a mentor or a teacher? Like, how do I know that they don't have Wetiko on them and that's what's guiding them? The body doesn't lie. Your body will never lie. This is so profound. Your body will never lie to you as long as you have cleaned the conduit enough to feel its message. If you keep a clean body, if you keep a clean mind, if you do your work to purge yourself, either in ceremony or not, you don't have to go to ceremony. You can have a ceremony of life. I've met some of the most profound people that have never sat in one ceremony, and they're so wise. But you'll know, because your body will start speaking to you. Your heart rate will increase. You might start sweating. You maybe get queasy. And it's not instinctual, right? Because instinct is like a quick flash where if you feel in danger, your instinct is going to give you a message to run. What I'm talking about is intuitional. Your body has an intuition, just like it has instinctual messaging and chemicals. So when I'm learning from someone, even here with you, like, my body feels relaxed with you because I can sense that you're coming from a pure place. I can sense that you're leading your company from a pure place. But if I was on a podcast, or if I was meeting someone new, and my intellect started to inform me of my instincts going off, and then my my animal brain wanting to run, that would be a moment for me to pause. Remember the power of the pause that we discussed earlier, and ask myself, do I believe, when I take a breath and I pause, that this person is trying to help me or wanting to support me regardless of their gain?
Mhm.
Regardless of their gain. And yes, paying someone for a service is valid, but I want to pay someone for a service when they're coming from that kind of a place anyways. So I think that's the framework. It's a starting framework for all of us to get really clear about how we can move forward, not just on a personal level, but on a societal level. The body doesn't lie, and so there's many ways to clean the body and keep the body physically healthy that'll allow us to listen to the body's wisdom, so that we won't have to get so stuck in our mind and stuck in our instincts,
Mm.
and we can start listening more to our intuition when we meet with people, when we get coaching, or when we're guided. Because otherwise, and this is the last thing I'll say, if we're not doing that work to understand, okay, this is a thought, this is my instinct, my physical, my animal brain, and then this is what it feels like to be in my intuition. If we don't understand what those three things feel like, and we don't have training on that, I mean, line us up in front of a table and put a dollar sign on our head, because we will be monetized, we will
Mhm.
be enslaved, and we will be infested with Wetiko. And then guess what? We'll turn around and do it to everyone else.
Mhm. That's how it is. That's beautiful.
That's how
Thank
I
you.
see it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And it's
Yeah.
so beautifully articulated and just touches. I'm so happy that this came into the conversation, because it touches so beautifully on all the other elements that we're speaking about. And when it comes to sovereignty, and also this very relevant message of how we source guidance and how we source support. And that can be attributed to, like you were mentioning, coaches, spiritual teachers, and guidance from the spiritual body, but also, just thinking about our medical model of care and how we so quickly give away our power to the person with the white lab coat and a degree on their wall. So this teaching is so fundamental to how we operate through life and how we approach life from this place of really recognizing each moment when we are going to give our power away and choosing not to, and being guided by the body and the somatic body and the intuition. As you were sharing so beautifully, it's this like radical shift in the way in which we go through our lives, right? And it's so empowering too. It's like that is the ultimate empowerment. Of course we need guidance, of course we need support, of course we are going to need other people to help us along our journey and to support us through deep healing processes, or help us to unlock deep parts within ourselves and understand why we are the way that we are. There's so many ways in which we could enter into either a mentorship or therapeutic model of care that supports us. But to go into even the depths of a healing journey from that place of autonomy and sovereignty is so important. And I feel like it's actually a pretty relevant topic to just the spiritual community at large right now, from everything from, shamans who take advantage of people to, the people waking up and starting to question whether or not all of the vaccinations that they're giving their kids are right for their family. Whatever it is, there's this like deep question and desire to take our power back a little bit, right? And like really stand firm in this place of sovereignty and freedom, which is such a beautiful thing and such a gift to even have the opportunity to reclaim. But it does require this vigilance, right? And this, I think like the whole concept of Wetiko very much is like an invitation to a whole different level of vigilance of the experience that we're living, of the experience within our minds, right? Of the ways in which we're creating and interacting with other people. There's a level of awareness there that is like invited through the spiritual teaching of Wetiko, that it's almost like watch your back, but also from this place of open your eyes and see that this is, the disease of the human spirit. It's pervasive, but you have the power to not only defend yourself, but protect yourself, and also to stop its rampage across the human psyche and the human species as a whole by your own willingness to, one, not engage in it, and two, take the necessary steps to protect yourself from it and to liberate yourself from the parasitic essence of that energy, of that spiritual energy.
It's not easy to know that you have a parasite. Like most of us on the physical plane have gut bugs, right? Especially people who have traveled to lots of foreign countries. But an emotional or a spiritual parasite or a mental parasite, they're not physical, right? We can't identify them in the physical realm. You can only touch an emotional parasite if you have the courage to explore the emotions that you're feeling and the emotions around you that are being absorbed by you osmotically that you think are yours, but they're actually not. They're just because you're hanging out with assholes, with people that are unconscious and ungrounded. So there's an inventory that gets to be made there. But then also, Wetiko, I believe, is primarily through the spiritual realm. And I'm sure you've felt this. Like I've actually seen the Jezebel Spirit. I have seen the face of demonic energy in ceremony. It was my very last, because my time with ayahuasca is complete. I visited and sat with ayahuasca 12 times. And on the 12th time, I got such a slap. And I was coming from such a desperate place, such a non-self-reliant place, such a victim place, that I actually got exactly what I deserved. It was the perfect medicine for me. But I don't wish my journey on anyone, because it took me almost 2 years to heal my OCD, because I got hit so hard. I mean, many parts of me died, but also as I was dying, I was being infected by the Jezebel spirit and the demonic spirit that was in that Maloka. And I'm not going to name the name of the center, but y'all need to be careful when you go to centers, because as Jordan Peterson says, when it comes to psychedelics or any entheogen, you open yourself to all realms. So look the hell out. Do not sit with people that have the wrong intention, that they themselves have been a harbor and a resting place for Wetiko, because ceremony is the most vulnerable place for people with all their chakras open. You're open to all realms. You think for 1 second that these entities and these energies and this Wetiko that has existed hundreds of thousands of years before humans ever were born, you think that my single psyche is going to be able to defend against hundreds of thousands or even millions of years of dark energy that's existed? I mean, how egoic of us to think we can just defend ourselves. Like, I've seen people go into ceremony and they go, no matter what, I believe that I am safe. I believe. It's like, yeah, good luck. Because if you go to a ceremony that's being led by a shaman who they themselves are infected with Wetiko, that is going to, I don't care if you're like Adonis or if you're covering yourself with steel shields. One has to be careful when they go into any type of ceremony setting. And unfortunately, you mentioned the shamans sometimes take advantage. My objective in sharing this isn't to put people in fear around ceremony. That's not what I'm saying. My objective in what I'm sharing is to just give a piece of my own story, that I actually met this Wetiko energy in it, and it was screaming at me when I was vomiting. It was screaming at me. It was actually teaching me, right? So I don't think Wetiko is inherently bad, because I don't think that evil is bad. I think it's just actually part of the theater. We're all in a big theater here. And so what I'm really saying, and the point I'm getting at, is like, when I go into ceremony, or when I learn to trust a facilitator, when I trust anything outside of myself, all that I'm doing is I'm opening myself up to the wisdom that I either have or do not have. And hopefully, by the grace of God, I am protected, so that my lack of wisdom in these higher realms or in these other spaces, that I am not absolutely decimated. There have been people that have been killed because they are so susceptible to dark energies and ceremonies. And again, it's not to put people in fear. It's to remind people that when you go to medicine, or when you go to prayer, when you go to God, speak from the I, and speak just like it's written in Mark 11:24. When you pray, believe that you have these things, and ask God from a humble place, if it is in your will, thank you that I have these things. But that's the key. If it's in your will, God, be humble, pray from the I, pray from gratitude, but then also be mindful about the dark energy that may or may not be in the space, and do not ever submit your will to someone else.
Yeah.
I guess that's really what I'm wanting to describe here, because
Yeah.
I've been through it myself, and thank God I made it out alive. I could have
Mhm.
had a psychic break so severe that I
Mhm.
may not have ever been able to come back. And that's happened
Mhm.
to many people.
Thank you for sharing your story, and definitely I'm not a stranger to experiences like that, and it's just a wonderful reminder for this level of vigilance to really be part of anyone's process when they're considering opening themselves in any way. And it doesn't even just have to be ceremony like you mentioned, but
Yes.
even the person who like goes to oracle reader to astrologer to like divination person, like they're constantly going to other people, right? It's the
Yes.
same
Yes.
thing of this element of just honing it in, having more awareness of how often we're opening ourselves up to those spaces where we are more vulnerable and susceptible. And there are also so many tools for spiritual protection. And I think one of my favorites is just this awareness, right? And like this discernment process of where we put ourselves and who we surround ourselves with and who we allow to come into our most vulnerable parts and tell us things or channel things for us. That's a big part. And then another big element for me has been the plants and working with ancient botanicals for these supporting deep spiritual protection, energetic processes, holding containers, and not just the entheogens and the psychedelic plants, but there's so many plants that offer spiritual protection. And
What type of plants? Sorry for interrupting you. I'm just curious. What type of plants, the botanicals, do you look for wisdom?
yeah, for wisdom or for spiritual protection or for both?
I think both. I mean, spiritual protection is pretty wise.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Well,
if I'm being protected spiritually, that is some wisdom.
yeah, for sure. There's many different plants that offer protection and wisdom. But my favorites are tobacco, borrachero, rue, white sage. These are main protection plants. Borrachero is also known as angel trumpet flower. And then there are some very strong smudging agents as well, not like the more common ones, but rare smudging agents that can be utilized to invoke spiritual protection. But we can utilize them in plant bath technology. We can utilize them in floral waters or healing lotions where they're distilled in alcohol and then you apply it all over the body. But there are many tools from the plant world that when we are utilizing it with this intention of invoking strength from the plants, invoking discernment, wisdom from the plants, asking, calling upon the spirits of nature to support us in both, the spiritual strength and protection, as well as the discernment and the wisdom that we need to navigate a situation. This is one of my favorite ways to work with plants in that way, because it becomes a relationship, very intimate experience, and very much the intentionality is an important part of it. But it's not so much about like ingesting or consuming them, but rather aligning with them through plant baths, through lotions, through offerings, through smudging the house with different herbs, smudging ourselves and our altar with different herbs. So those are some of my favorite ways to work with plants for protection and along this thought line.
In my property here, I came back. We were in Maui for a month, and there was these vines, like these blackberry vines, and these, I don't know what type of plant it is, but it had grown so much, and it was like growing and weaving itself in the fence line, and it was getting itself into positions where the sun would hit it perfectly. The only reason I'm sharing that is because, yes, the plants have power, but also there are carnivorous plants. The plant world is this entire kingdom, right? And so not all plants are here to serve you. You can eat the wrong plant and you can die. There are poisonous plants like the poison ivy. So, it's wonderful because even in your share, right? Even in your share about how you go to the plants for spiritual protection and wisdom, I find it also really profound that you use your discernment and your intelligence to know which plant to use, to know which plants are actually your ally that are here to serve you. And it's literally a mirror of exactly what we're talking about when we go to a ceremony or when we go to a coach. It's you use the same intuitive and deciphering power that you've learned over time through your own life experience. I think that's really wisdom. Like people ask me all the time, like, dude, why is your podcast called Wellness and Wisdom? It's because in order to have wellness, in order to be well, one has to cultivate wisdom over time. And I just don't think, Mariah, I do not think you can have true wisdom unless you combine life experience with compassion, understanding of self, and put it all together. And I think that's how you can hold a bowl with wisdom inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no shortcut to our pain. There's no shortcut to wisdom. I'm 44. I feel like I'm just kind of now cracking the code on wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
I have a long way to go, but it's so cool because in our conversation, we're all talking about the same mechanisms, whether it's head or heart. Like you and I are both describing the same things, the way in which we cultivate that wisdom through our experience, through our intelligence. And the plants are doing it too. The
Mm-hmm.
plants are doing it with us. They're doing it with my property. They're doing it with everywhere. The plant behind you has its own consciousness. It's just so fascinating. It's part of the theater. It's part of the cool
Mm-hmm.
theater we're in.
Yeah, it's the dance, right? And like you said, the ceremony of life and being willing and open to walk through life and go through life from this place of curiosity and an openness to see what comes next. And I'm sure for you in your journey, you have experienced this process of learning how to expand to receive more, and both like expanding capacity to hold more, but also learning how to empty your cup so that you can hear the medicine and the teachings that this given moment is giving you. Because I'm sure you are familiar that if we're so full and if we're so, attached to our beliefs and our stories and what we think to be the way, then it doesn't leave any room for more, right? And for you, who's been on this beautiful multi-decade study of studying wisdom and wellness and really, resourcing yourself with so many different channels of ways to discover this, experience it, embody it, apply it. It's very much this constant process of like emptying our cup, making space to take on more, to be open to receive more. And we're kind of like nearing the end of this conversation. I really wanted to bring this into the talk today, this element of capacity and expansion, because I think it's a really important one to kind of sustain and weave together all of these beautiful themes that we're touching on today, because it's how we continue to do what we're doing, right? Without that, then we shut down, we reach our max, we burn out, right? We get uninspired. So it's this final theme is like how it all comes together, and how we're here today talking to each other, amidst our busy schedules and all the other stuff that we got going on. It's what drives this beautiful opportunity to continue living life from this place.
Yeah. You mentioned the word busy, and I fall into that trap sometimes of being busy.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you believe, and I feel this way, that it's really about being full? Even the term mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an interesting term, because really mindfulness is about emptying one's mind so that there is greater capacity to just be in the moment and just to notice our thoughts instead of being owned by them. That's mindfulness. At least that's my understanding of it. But when my schedule's full, I enjoy it. I love it because I consciously choose what's in my schedule. I consciously choose to be with you. And of course that consciousness is attached to what I believe I'm here for. And so I think in this conversation of capacity and how do we first increase our capacity, it starts with something much deeper to begin with. And that is, am I actually aligned with my purpose? Am I really living the life I want to live? Because who cares if you have greater capacity doing something you hate? We can force ourselves to do shit we hate all day long, but eventually you get cancer, or eventually you get an illness, or eventually something shuts down and you are forced to finally listen, just much like I was in my early 30s. I was forced to listen. In the 12th ceremony in ayahuasca, I was forced to look at my pornography addiction. So all these things are blessings. They're all deep blessings, but they sure as hell don't feel like it in the moment, right? Increasing capacity is hard because you have to rip the fence out and move it to a greater property line. And so when you start moving the fences that keep you stuck, or moving the fences that make your capacity small, be prepared for struggle, be prepared for challenge, and for maybe some blood and some sweat and some tears. But these are all beautiful things, because once you have increased your capacity, then the things that used to control you, or the things that used to make you feel busy, or the things that took out of your cup, they just won't anymore. They'll feel different. You'll wake up with a new understanding of, hey, I actually enjoy responsibility. I enjoy being responsible for others. I enjoy paying people on my team. I enjoy what we're doing because I'm in joy as I do it, because I've earned that joy through doing the work to increase my capacity to hold all the things that aren't joy, which is the only thing that affords me the joy anyways. I wouldn't know the joy of serving. I wouldn't know the joy of increased capacity. I wouldn't know the joy of increased responsibility unless I went through all the clean out, the spiritual clean out, the physical clean out, the constant cleaning out of me, Josh, of us, because otherwise we become stagnant. I remember I had a doctor on the show. His name was Dr. Tim Brown. He's a deeply spiritual man, even though he used to be the physician for the professional World Surf League, you know, the pro surfers. And he said, we're either a river or we're a dam. And it's so true. Like, on a physical level, we're either stuck or we're flowing. On an emotional level, energy and motion, we're either stuck or we're flowing. Same thing spiritually, same thing financially. Like, this concept of river or dam can be applied to anything. People that come from lack, that grow up to be millionaires, people that come from poverty, and they're still in this mindset that even with $25 million in the bank, they might die. It might not be enough. That's not liberation. That's not freedom. Who cares if you can grow a bolus of money? Who cares if you can go grow a capacity to be in service if you actually are a prisoner of it? I don't want to build a jail cell of my own construction and be in a situation where other people think I'm happy, other people think I'm being of service, other people think that everything's great looking in because my social media looks perfect and I'm showing you the highlights. But on the inside, if it feels like a jail cell, that's not freedom. That's not liberation. Who cares if capacity has grown? So first and foremost, to go back to it, I think it's really the most important thing that I've learned, man. Really get clear on your purpose. Do the most deepest work to get clear on why you're doing something, what it means to you. And actually that'll carry you through anything, because as you know, leading four visions is not always puppy dogs and candy canes. Like, sometimes you really have to go and meet your maker in certain ways, right? You have to have ego death. You have to look in the mirror. People need to get paid, and maybe payroll is short, and there's all these things, right? But if you didn't love it, if you didn't grow your capacity because your heart was so connected to your purpose, who cares if you just had to slog through it and grow your capacity? It's because you know your purpose. It's because we know why we're doing something and we're so connected to it. And that's a journey of its own. But once we're really connected to what we're doing and we feel the purpose, this wellspring inside of us, then we can grow our capacity, and we can weather the storms of the pain, and we can weather the storms of the friction of growing capacity, because we know that it's all going to be worth it. We know that when we're aligned with our purpose and when we're in joy, that it can carry us through the really hard times, the really dark times, because this too shall pass. This too shall pass. It's a wonderful, wonderful phrase, right? And on the other side of everything, it's like, you know, Dr. Hawkins says, the sun is always shining above the clouds. But sometimes it's so cloudy, like we can never see the sun. But believe in your heart and soul that when you're aligned to your purpose, eventually the sun will shine. It's just only a matter of time. So I think that's what growing capacity really means, is the purpose and the foundation that's built before you were even inspired to grow your capacity. I mean, I'm a dad, like growing capacity for being with my woman, my family, my business, myself, my creator. It's a huge energetic capacity. It's massive. And if I didn't love all the different parts that I was wanting to love, wanting to be in service to, if I didn't truly, authentically love it, it would kill me. It would exhaust me. It would decimate me. And I would be forced to, when you're coming from purpose, you will have unlimited resources and unlimited energy that present themselves to you in the most mysterious and beautiful way. And you will always be supported. But when you're not coming from purpose, you will meet trial and tribulation over and over and over again that will eventually redirect you to your purpose. And you will know in your heart of hearts, when you close your eyes, when you open your eyes, that you're living your life on purpose. And that is like the greatest gift in the world. There is nothing more valuable than living our purpose. Don't be in a hurry to live your purpose. Don't be in a hurry to find your purpose. It took me a long time. It took almost half my life
Mm.
to find my current purpose, and that purpose will transform. That purpose will continue to change and amalgamate. Like, be kind to yourself as you're finding your purpose, as you're increasing your
Mm.
capacity, because we can really be hard on ourselves, and that makes the journey so much harder.
Thank you so much for that beautiful reminder, and just really feeling that that message is so pertinent to so many of us as we are navigating these paths of empowerment and reclamation, and just really going to sit with that question, am I a river or a dam? I love that. I love that. It's such a wonderful
Yeah.
compass from which we can approach our lives and really,
Yeah.
get into that flow state, right? And live from that place of effortless grace and alignment, co-creation. This is what we're here for. And this is the invitation to step up and choose life here and now. Today is the day to seize the day. Yes.
Let's
Well,
go.
let's do it. Let's do it. Here we are showing up and really just appreciating you and your time here today and sharing with all of us in this way. It's been so beautiful. And before we go, I just want to really just name and bring into this beautiful conversation today what's next for you in your expansion of both capacity and purpose through Liberated Life Tribe and the next evolution of your beautiful platform and community. So please share with our listeners what's coming with Josh Trent and your incredible team.
Wow, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm looking at the edge of my capacity now, and I'm really curious and excited about how I can hold more, because the only way that I am going to have an even more immeasurable, incredible life is for me to go to the thing that brings up fear in me.
Mm.
And what brings up fear, and this is a paradox, right? So what brings up fear in me is a question of, how do I hold it all? How do I have the podcast, my family, the studio, the land, my children, my presence with self, and how do I also hold the community? And I actually like that fear. Like, I'm loving that fear, because that fear is actually directing me towards the next phase of my life. Many points in this conversation have all touched it. They've all pointed to it, whether it's capacity or Wetiko or the wisdom of plants. All of these things are pointing in the same direction. It's like this big blinking light, and the light says liberation.
Mm.
We're all here to be liberated. We all drink, in Greek mythology, there's the river Lethe, where we drink from the river of forgetfulness.
Mm.
And that's how we start our life. We forget who we are. We forget how amazing we are. And so it's the fear, because we're still digesting that water from the river Lethe. We're still remembering who we are, how amazing we are, that we're a child of God, that we're so loved, that we're here. We were brought into this lifetime because we are here to thrive. That is our birthright. And so the Liberated Life Tribe, if you go to liberatedlife.me, this is a place where you can sign up to be on the waiting list to join the community. And in this community, what my heart's promise is that not only will we explore these 5 sides of self and learn how to nourish these 5 sides of self, but more importantly, that there's a trusted, consistent, safe place for authentic expression to be seen, felt, and heard by myself as leading it, and by everybody who's there with us. And so it's not, how am I going to hold it all? It's, wow, I'm excited about how I'm going to hold it all. So I take that fear. I love that fear. I feel that fear. I sit with that fear, and the fear directs me to move the fence line and to go through the process of shedding any other beliefs that I have about worthiness or capacity or anything else. Any speaker that we love and respect, they've all been exactly at the bottom.
Mm.
Tony Robbins, all these people, I mentioned Tony Robbins, but it could be anyone, right? It could be anyone. Think of one person, Mariah, and all of us. Think of one person that you go to for wisdom, right? Maybe it's Muji. I really love Muji's teachings. These people were all broke or impoverished or beaten, or they had gone through tragedy. All of these people that have anything of wisdom to share, they have had so much pain in their life that has pushed them in that direction. And every stage of the game, I'm sure you feel this as a business owner, every stage of the game, we're liberating ourselves or we're in slavery. And so, especially with going on in the world right now, I think it is most important that there is a community that is in partnership with other communities like Four Visions to be able to be liberated, because this is why we're here, y'all. We're not here to be a slave. We're not here to be a pawn in the game. This is why we're here. We're here to be liberated and to live a liberated life. So if you'd like to join us, there'll be all kinds of free offerings as well, because I believe that when you give, you receive. And as long as you give, not for the only purpose of receiving, you will continue to receive. And so it's liberatedlife.me.
Blessings to the unfoldment of this beautiful project, and just really envisioning so much success and the ability to touch so many lives through this wonderful initiative. And really just want to offer my gratitude to you for today and for the opportunity to connect with you in this way, as well as just the greater whole and context of who you are and what you are doing and how you are walking in this world, really just honoring your path, your family, your company, and all the lives that you get to touch. Thank you for showing up, really just so humbled, and here we are showing up together. So it's really an honor, and it's been a pleasure to connect with you in this way. So thank you for being here and for joining us today.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
On behalf of the Four Visions family, we want to thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you have enjoyed this conversation and have gained seeds of wisdom that will nourish your spiritual path. If you have a moment, please leave us a review, as this helps us to reach more people. For more resources and information about the plant path, and for the highest quality spiritual tools and botanicals, please visit us at fourvisions.com. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this journey with you all. Until next time.